Father Davis's solemn voice echoed through the church. In sickness and in health, in poverty and in wealth, will you love him, honor him, and protect him until death do you part? I looked at Sophia Taylor standing before me in her holy wedding gown. She was as beautiful as a painting, yet as cold as ice. In my previous life, we were bound together for 50 long years. From a young man with nothing, I climbed to become the richest man in Seattle, commanding a $50 billion commercial empire. I gave her everything I could: wealth, status, endless indulgence, and love. But even when we lay side by side, in hospital beds, our lives fading away, she never once told me, "I love you." The last thing she left me with was poisoned regret. "Ethan," she said, "the greatest regret of my life is that I couldn't marry Liam. If you truly love me in the next life, please make it happen for us." Liam Parker, her unattainable white moon, the man she loved but could never have. For him, she turned a cold shoulder to me. For him, she moved out. Even at the grand ocean-wide group listing banquet with the whole world watching, one phone call from him was enough for her to abandon the guests and drive 1,000 miles just to be by his side. I spent 50 years and never once warmed her heart. Now, at her dying request, I truly returned to our wedding day 50 years ago. I was about to speak the words that had once left me without regrets. "I do." But then, Sophia raised her head. The innocent bewilderment of a new bride was gone from her eyes. In its place was sharpness, cold clarity, and disgust. I knew instantly. She had been reborn, too. "Ethan," she said softly, her voice low but clear enough for every relative and friend to hear, "let's break up." The church fell utterly silent. All eyes turned to me, shocked, pitying, even gloating. Robert Taylor, her father, rose with an ashen face, ready to explode. I lifted my hand, signaling him to stay calm. Sophia's face carried a cruel satisfaction, as if waiting for me to break down, to beg, to cling to her in humiliation just like in our past life. But she was disappointed. I calmly unpinned the corsage from my chest and dropped it to the floor. My voice was steady, stripped of all emotion. "Fine." That single word made all the sharp retorts she had prepared catch in her throat. For the first time, genuine astonishment flashed in those beautiful eyes. What did you say?" "All right," I repeated with a faint smile. "Since this is your choice, I'll grant it. After all, a forced melon isn't sweet." Father Davis stood frozen, at a loss for words. Guests began whispering, the entire scene spiraling into chaos. Sophia's mother, Margaret Taylor, rushed to her side, clutching her hand. "Sophia, are you insane? Do you even know what you're doing?" "I know very well," Sophia snapped, shaking her mother off. Her gaze stayed fixed on me as though searching for the slightest crack in my calm mask. "Ethan, stop pretending. Do you think acting indifferent will change my mind? It won't. The man I love has never been you." Her words cut like a blade, sharp, precise, straight to the heart that once bled for her. But that heart no longer existed. What remained was iron, unyielding and cold. I ignored her outburst and turned instead to the stunned parents on both sides. Bowing slightly, I said, "Dad, Mom, Uncle Robert, Aunt Margaret, I'm sorry. Today's wedding is canceled." And with that, I walked away. No hesitation. No regret. Stepping out of the church doors, the sunlight was blinding. I drew in a deep breath. The weight of 50 years, resentment, humiliation, and torment that clung to me like maggots on bone, vanished in an instant. I remembered the night before Oceanwide Group's IPO. For a critical partnership, I went 3 days and nights without sleep. At the signing banquet, I drank until my stomach bled, and the first thing I wanted to do after securing the deal was call her, to share my joy. But on the other end of the line came her cold voice. "I'm with Liam. He's in a bad mood. Don't bother me unless it's important." I remember my 50th birthday. I booked Seattle's finest hotel and invited all the city's elites. She, as the hostess, vanished midway through the banquet. Only later did I learn the truth. Liam's exhibition hadn't sold a single piece, so she paid out of her own pocket to buy every painting, then spent the night with him, drinking wine in his gallery. The next morning, the entire Seattle High society mocked me, Ethan Johnson, the cuckolded fool. I had given everything, my dignity, my wealth, even my life, to love a woman who never loved me back. I once thought love was sacrifice. I thought love was letting go. But only when she told me to let go on her deathbed did I finally understand. My love to her was nothing more than a shackle, a prison keeping her from running to the man she truly wanted. All my efforts were worthless in her eyes, but now I've been reborn. Sophia, since you crave freedom so desperately, since you want nothing more than to soar with Liam, fine, I'll let it happen. But this time, you'll be the one to pay the price. My phone rang. It was Sophia. I hung up without hesitation. Then the messages started flooding in. "Ethan, come back to me. We need to make things clear. Do you think walking away ends this? What you owe me, how will you repay it? Coward, running is the only thing you're good at." I looked at those words, and a cold smile curled at the corner of my mouth. Over. In my previous life, she married me right after graduation. She never lifted a finger while I built everything from nothing. I turned a small renovation crew into ocean-wide group, worth $50 billion. As my wife, she enjoyed it all. Designer bags, luxury cars, sprawling villas, even a private jet. I gave her everything a woman could dream of. And what did she ever give me? Ah, yes, a child. But when that child was 3, he fell ill with fever. And because Liam was heartbroken and drunk, she left our sick child alone to comfort him. The pneumonia worsened. He almost died. From that day on, I kept her away from him. In this life, with the wedding canceled, that child will never come into this world. Perhaps for him, that is also a blessing. I took a taxi back to what was supposed to be our marital home, a large flat in the city center. The deed bore only my name. But when I arrived, Sophia, her parents, and Liam were already waiting at the door. Liam wore a faded denim jacket, his hair slightly long, projecting that so-called artist air. When his eyes met mine, his expression brimmed with smug provocation. In my previous life, it was precisely that look, that the world owes me everything look, that won Sophia's sympathy and love for 50 years. "Ethan, you finally show your face." Sophia stood with her arms crossed, like a queen handing down judgment. "You ruined the wedding. You've humiliated the Taylor family completely. So tell me, how do you plan to make this right?" Her skill at twisting reality was as polished as ever. I slipped on my slippers, walked calmly to the sofa, poured myself a glass of water, and ignored them entirely. Robert Taylor, her father, shook with anger. "Ethan, what kind of attitude is this? Sophia has already said she won't marry you. We're here today to discuss compensation." Compensation? I finally lifted my eyes, watching them as if observing a clumsy play. "And what exactly do I owe you compensation for?" Sophia cut in sharply. "Ethan, we've been together 3 years. I gave you the best years of my youth, and now you just want to walk away?" "So you married me only to enjoy a comfortable life?" I said flatly. "Well, now that you won't marry me, the deal is off. We owe each other nothing." Her face flushed red, then turned pale. She hadn't expected that the man who once obeyed her every word would dare to humiliate her with such blunt cruelty. "You're lying!" she screamed. "You love me! You love me!" I laughed softly. "Love you? Or love the man standing beside you?" My gaze shifted to Liam, who had stayed quiet, one hand possessively on Sophia's shoulder in a victor's pose. Meeting my eyes, Liam smirked. Ethan, Sophia has made her choice. As a man, you should be magnanimous. You can't force matters of the heart. Magnanimous? I rose slowly and walked toward them. Towering half a head taller than Liam, the aura I'd built from years at the top made him instinctively step back. Liam, I said, I remember you graduated from the Seattle School of Art. You've always dreamed of opening a gallery, haven't you? Liam stiffened, then puffed out his chest. So what if I have? Nothing. I pulled out a checkbook, a habit from my past life. I'll give you a chance. Leave Sophia, and I'll give you $5 million, enough to open your gallery and live the rest of your life in comfort. In my previous life, I had considered this. I thought to buy him off. But Sophia had cried, Ethan, you're insulting me. You're insulting Liam. Our love can't be measured with money. Back then, I gave up, so as not to make her sad. But this time, I would measure their so-called sacred love with money, right before her eyes. Liam's breathing quickened. $5 million. In that era, it was an astronomical sum for a struggling young artist. A flash of greed flickered in his gaze, though he masked it quickly. He glanced at Sophia. Her expression had already turned stormy. Ethan, do you think you can buy me? Liam declared righteously, even as desire lingered in his eyes. The woman I love is Sophia, not your money. He gave her a look full of deep, devoted affection. Sophia's expression softened instantly. She turned to him, moved beyond words. Oh. I nodded, tore the check in half, and slowly ripped it to pieces in front of them. At least you have some backbone. Then I looked at Sophia. You've seen it. I've done everything I could. Now please, leave my house. My house? Sophia snapped back. Ethan, don't forget. The seed money for your startup came from my father. You owe me half of this house. At last, the truth surfaced. That was their real reason for showing up today. Seed money? I chuckled coldly. Uncle Robert, when you lent me $50,000 back then, I repaid you $100,000 the very next year. Do you need me to pull up the bank records to refresh your memory? Robert Taylor's face flushed the color of raw liver. Of course, he remembered. Back then, he had looked down on me as nothing more than a poor kid. If Sophia hadn't insisted on marrying me, he would never have lent me a dime. As for this apartment, I opened the drawer, pulled out the property deed, and slapped it on. The table, the down payment, the mortgage, every penny came from me. It's written here in black and white. Only my name, Ethan Johnson, is on it. You want it? Fine. See me in court. With that, I shredded the last of their illusions. Margaret Taylor shrieked, Ethan, you're heartless. Sophia has been with you for 3 years, and this is how you treat her? Have you no conscience? Aunt Margaret, I said icily, let's speak with evidence. In these 3 years, Sophia has lived with the very best. Her food, clothing, jewelry, handbags, all the luxuries. Do you want me to calculate the total? I'd say it adds up to well over 100,000. Don't you think? Who benefited here? And besides, my gaze hardened. I haven't even held you accountable for tricking my family into marriage, only to abandon me at the altar and shame the Johnsons. How do you plan to pay that debt? Every word I spoke darkened their faces further. They had never expected me, the man who once obeyed every command, to become so cold, so sharp, so merciless. Sophia trembled with rage, her finger stabbing toward my face. Ethan, just you wait. You'll regret this. I'm waiting. I made a polite gesture toward the door. It's that way. No need for me to see you out. They slunk away one by one. Liam, before leaving, turned back and gave me a venomous glare. I knew what was in his heart. Not anger at how I treated Sophia, but regret for the $5 million check I had torn apart. A man who values pride and love over money would never have revealed such naked greed. He only refused because he wanted more. And Sophia was his greatest bargaining chip. In my past life, I never saw it. In this one, I see it all too clearly. When the house finally quieted, I sat back and began to retrace my life. It was 1998. I was 25, newly estranged from Sophia at the wedding. All I had then was this apartment and a fledgling renovation company with barely a dozen employees, the seed that would one day grow into ocean-wide group. And Sophia. She was starting over too. She knew Oceanwide would rise into a $50 billion empire, so she called off the wedding, but she would never let go of that fat piece of meat so easily. Sure enough, before long, a court summons arrived. Sophia was suing me, demanding division of joint property from our years of cohabitation. But her real goal was clear. She didn't want the house. She didn't want cash. She wanted half the equity in my company. Her calculations were loud and precise. In my previous life, she had secured Oceanwide's original shares. Even years after we separated, those shares allowed her to live a life of wasteful luxury. In this life, she wanted to repeat the same trick, but this time with an even more perfect ending. With half the equity in her hands, she and Liam would find a way to push me out completely, leaving me with nothing. My empire, stolen, while they ascended together to the peak of life. I had to admit, it was a flawless plan. Unfortunately for her, the man she faced this time was reborn. The day I received the summons, I called my lawyer, Mr. Carter. Then I reached out to Sophia myself. We agreed to meet at a cafe. She sat across from me, stirring her coffee lazily, not even bothering to look up. "Have you finally come to terms?" "I accept your terms." I didn't waste a breath. Her head snapped up, eyes widening in disbelief before filling with ecstatic joy. You're serious?" "Serious," I nodded. "You can have the company, but I have one condition." Her gaze sharpened. "What condition?" "The company has some debts, about $200,000. Since you want it, you'll have to take on the debts as well." That was the first trap. The company did owe money, but far more than $200,000. Because of one stalled project, I was burdened with nearly $800,000 in debt. In 1998, that was enough to crush any small business. In my previous life, I nearly died working day and night to pay it off. Sophia, however, didn't know. In her reborn memories, my company had always been smooth sailing, rising steadily from the start. She thought the $200,000 I mentioned was just a trivial matter. "All right, I agree." She barely hesitated. "But we need it in writing. A contract stating 100% of the equity belongs to me." "Fine." I nodded, watching the uncontrollable greed flash in her eyes. Inside, all I felt was cold detachment, not even the most basic investigation. She was too eager, too blinded by profit. In our past life, she had mocked me for being obsessed with money. In this one, she was stumbling headlong into a pit I had dug for money. How ironic. Before long, under the witness of Mr. Carter, we signed the transfer agreement. I handed over Salloway Decoration Company, with all its assets and liabilities, to Sophia. The moment she held the papers, she turned to Liam. Their eyes met, and they exchanged a triumphant smile. That smile overflowed with mockery toward me, and with boundless anticipation for the future. They thought they had won. That they had just claimed the foundations of a future empire. On their way out, they even staged a performance. Right there, in front of me, Liam wrapped his arms around Sophia and kissed her passionately. He looked back at me, smugness dripping from every word. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson." I simply smiled. "Enjoy it while it lasts. The game has only just begun." And the very first thing Sophia did after taking over was rename the company. Sophia and Liam Decoration. They renamed the company after themselves, Sophia and Liam Decoration, announcing to the world that it now belonged to them. Sophia wasted no time in appointing Liam, a man with no management experience, as general manager, handing him full control of operations. Their ambition was clear, to replicate the path of my past life. I remember it vividly. The turning point in Salloway Decoration's rise had been winning the full decoration contract for Seattle's newly developed Blue Bay community. That project earned me my first real fortune and made Salloway famous in Seattle's industry overnight. In Sophia's reborn memory, that project was a guaranteed success. So, when the Blue Bay community opened its public tender, they rushed in, submitting a bid with profits shaved to the bone, convinced it was their golden ticket. They won. Drunk on victory, Sophia and Liam held a celebration at the company. Liam boasted to everyone that their firm would soon rise to the top, becoming an industry benchmark for Seattle, and eventually the entire country. But at that very moment, while they were celebrating, I was somewhere else entirely. I sat with Mr. Wilson, the village committee secretary, on a barren patch of saline soil in the forgotten western suburbs of Seattle. In my hands was just over $1 million, the cash I'd gained from selling them the company. We drank cheap liquor together under the fading sun. "Mr. Johnson?" Wilson asked, his face flushed from alcohol, his words slurred. "Are you really going to lease this wasteland? This is alkaline soil. Nothing grows here. Even building houses is risky. What could you possibly want it for?" I smiled, refilling his glass. "A man from the mountains has his own clever plans. Remember, Mr. Wilson, we signed a contract, 50-year lease, rent paid in full. For 50 years, this land belongs to me." Wilson grinned wide, nodding. Yes, black and white on paper. How could it be fake?" To the village, it was a miracle. Over 2,000 acres of barren land, suddenly bringing them $200,000 in rent every year for half a century. A windfall from the heavens. To everyone else, I looked insane. Walking away from a perfectly good renovation company, only to gamble everything on a piece of dead land. Even Michael Wong, my most trusted subordinate from the last life and the only one I still kept close, hesitated. "Ethan, isn't this too risky? Shouldn't we think it over?" I placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "Michael, trust me. In less than 3 months, this land will become the hottest spot in Seattle." He doubted me, but he believed me, because only I knew the truth. Within a week, the government would announce a sweeping development plan. This barren wasteland would become Seattle's official high-tech industrial development zone, and the very starting point of the first highway to the inland provinces. In my past life, I missed this chance. I had been drowning in $800,000 of debt, too busy scrambling for survival to notice. By the time I realized, the land had already been carved up by developers, and I was left fighting over scraps like the Blue Bay Project. But not this time. This time, I moved first. While I secured a priceless core of Seattle's future, Sophia and Liam leapt headfirst into the first trap I had left behind for them, the Blue Bay community. What they didn't know was that this project, which seemed so brilliant on paper, was in fact a bottomless pit. In my last life, I had survived it only because of a close bond with the developer's CEO, who secretly warned me the payment cycle would drag on endlessly. Prepare to fund the project yourself. Even with that advantage, I barely survived, forced into taking high-interest loans. But Sophia and Liam, they had no connections, no background, no allies. They only saw my dazzling success. They had no idea of the blood it cost me. Their reckless low bid left almost no profit margin. Worse, the developer had been replaced by a notorious scoundrel in Seattle, famous for squeezing contractors dry. They threw in every cent of working capital, even borrowed in the company's name, to fund the project. At first it looked glorious. Workers, materials, construction booming. But soon, cracks appeared. By contract, the developer was supposed to pay the first installment once half the work was done. But he delayed, dodged, made excuses, and paid nothing. Suppliers hounded them day and night. Workers, unpaid, began to strike. The company's cash flow collapsed, and then, as if on cue, the $800,000 abandoned project debt, the one I had carefully hidden, came due. Creditors swarmed their offices, blocking doors, demanding repayment. Sophia and Liam panicked. Their golden goose had turned into a ravenous beast, devouring everything. I saw them on the evening news. Sophia, once so elegant, now appeared with tangled hair and a haggard face, screaming hoarsely as angry workers surrounded her. And Liam, her so-called true love, her artist with grand dreams, cowered behind her like a frightened quail. His bravado stripped away. Their empire of dreams was crumbling before the world's eyes. Off-screen, the reporter's cold voice cut through the room. Sophia and Liam Decoration Company has been sued by multiple suppliers for overdue payments and workers' wages. The company's legal representative, Sophia Taylor, has officially been listed as a dishonest person. I switched off the TV and poured myself a glass of red wine. In just 2 months, they had destroyed their beautiful future, faster than even I had expected. That afternoon, my phone rang. Sophia's voice came through, hoarse and trembling, stripped of the haughty tone she once carried with such pride. "Ethan, can we meet?" "No," I refused flatly. "Please, just once. One last time." Her voice broke, laced with sobs. I hesitated for a moment, then agreed. I was curious. What tricks could she possibly have left? The meeting place was the same cafe as before. She walked in, thinner than ever, her eyes sunken, her beauty smothered beneath exhaustion. No amount of makeup could conceal the ruin written across her face. When she saw me, her gaze was tangled, a storm of resentment, unwillingness, and a desperate plea. "You did this, didn't you?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "The Blue Bay mess, that debt out of nowhere, it was all your plan." So what if it was? I didn't even bother denying it. Her body trembled. Tears spilled instantly. "Why, Ethan? Why are you doing this to me? Even if we can't be husband and wife, you didn't have to be so ruthless. I thought you loved me." That was the funniest joke I had ever heard. "Love you?" I sneered. "When you stood there in a wedding dress in front of our friends and family, announcing you were leaving me for another man, where was love then? When you and Liam tried to steal the company I built with my own hands, climbing on my back, for your bright future, where was love then? Sophia, stop throwing that word around. You've dirtied it beyond repair." My words cut like knives, shredding her last scraps of dignity. Her lips trembled, her face pale as death. Finally, through clenched teeth, she whispered, "What do you want?" "I don't want anything." I blew gently across my coffee, calm and indifferent. "I'm just watching a show, and so far, the performance is quite entertaining." She shot to her feet, leaning across the table, eyes wild with desperation. "You win. I give up. Please, please, spare us." Her voice broke as tears streamed down her face. She cried about the last 2 months, about Liam's cowardice, about her despair. "I don't want the company anymore. I'll give it back. I don't want anything. Just step in and fix this. Please, Ethan, for the sake of the 3 years we were together." I cut her off coldly. "That bond was broken the day you called off the engagement. As for the company, a debt-ridden wreck buried in lawsuits, I wouldn't take it back even if you begged me to." I stood to leave. "Don't go," she cried, clutching at my sleeve, her posture crumbling into dust. "Ethan, I know I was wrong. I really do. I shouldn't have listened to Liam." Her voice cracked as she scrambled for excuses. It was him. He pushed me. He said your company would be worth tens of billions. He told me if we took it, we'd never have to worry about money again. He lied to me. Her pitifulness made me sick. Who was it that swore she loved Liam above all else? Who defied the world for him? And now, when ruin struck, she cast him aside as nothing more than a scapegoat. As expected, spouses are like birds in the same forest. When disaster comes, each flies its own way, and they weren't even married. This is your mess, not mine. I pulled my arm free. She stumbled backward, crashing against the table, spilling coffee all over herself, disheveled, humiliated. Ethan, she cried, out, clinging to a last desperate thread. I know a secret, a huge secret about Seattle's future. If you help me, I'll tell you. I paused, curiosity flickering. What secret could possibly exist in that shallow mind, so full of nothing but vanity and greed? Her eyes brightened with hope as she lowered her voice. The west suburbs. The government is about to develop that saline wasteland. Right now, land prices there are dirt cheap, practically a giveaway. If we buy now and sell later, we'll make hundreds of times the profit. She thought she held the ultimate trump card. She thought she was the sole reborn protagonist, clutching a world-shattering secret. She looked at me, waiting for me, to break into shock, into ecstatic joy. Instead, I laughed. I laughed loudly, rocking with amusement. Her hopeful expression froze, draining pale as death. Why are you laughing? I stopped and looked at her the way one looks at a pitiful clown. Sophia, do you really think you're the only protagonist in this world? I pulled a document from my pocket and tossed it onto the table. Take a good look. It was a photocopy of a land lease contract. On it, in clear black ink, lessee Ethan Johnson. Land location, Seattle West Suburbs, saline alkali land. Area, 2,300 mu. Lease term, 50 years. At the bottom, the date, 2 months ago, the very day after she signed the company transfer agreement. Sophia's eyes locked onto the contract, her pupils shrinking in disbelief. Her pupils shrank to pinpoints, filled with shock and fear. Her breathing quickened, her body trembling uncontrollably. No, impossible. This can't be, she whispered. How could you know? How could you? I know far more than you think, I said, staring down at her, my words deliberate, slow, sharp as a knife. In your eyes, I was nothing. More than a pitiful stepping stone you could abandon at will. But in my eyes, you and your so-called true love are nothing but pawns I played with at my leisure. You think taking my company robbed me of my future? Wrong. I only tossed away a piece of trash I never wanted in the first place. You think uncovering the West Suburb project gave you the key to turn everything around? Wrong again. The moment I acquired that land, there was never going to be a seat at the table for you. Sophia, you've always been nothing more than a joke. The words crushed her completely. She collapsed into a chair, face ashen, eyes hollow, as though her spirit had been torn from her body. In that moment, I finally understood. The cruelest revenge wasn't leaving her with nothing. It was forcing her to see that everything she had schemed for, every betrayal, every wound she dealt to others, was nothing but worthless garbage, and what she cast aside was the one treasure she could never reach. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. A week later, the Seattle city government held a press conference, officially announcing the creation of the Seattle High-Tech Industrial Development Zone and the launch of the Coastal Highway Project. Overnight, land prices in the western suburbs exploded 1,000-fold. With more than 2,300 acres in hand, I, Ethan Johnson, became the most sought-after new tycoon in Seattle. I founded Rising Sun Capital, and investors lined up at my door, checks in hand, desperate for a piece of my empire. Meanwhile, Sophia and Liam Decoration declared bankruptcy, drowning in lawsuits and debt. The court seized everything, including her parents' home, to repay what they owed. In a single night, her family fell from comfort and privilege to destitution on the streets. And Liam? He vanished. Word spread that he had stolen the last of Sophia's money and fled south. Her so-called once-in-a-lifetime love ended in a pathetic farce, leaving her empty-handed both in fortune and in heart. I thought the story had ended there. I had everything I wanted, and those who betrayed me had paid the bitterest price. A perfect ending. But I was wrong. Behind this grudge that spanned 2 lifetimes hid a deeper, darker truth. The one who uncovered it was my assistant, Michael Wong. He placed a thick file on my desk, his expression grave. "Ethan," he said, "this Liam, he's not simple." I frowned. To me, Liam was nothing more than a man with hollow ambition, selfish and talentless, someone easily forgotten. "What's so remarkable about him?" I asked, lighting a cigarette. Michael tapped the file. "We dug into his past. He's been telling everyone he's an orphan who survived on welfare and odd jobs through college. But the truth is, his roots are in Los Angeles." "Los Angeles?" I raised a brow. "Yes," Michael nodded. "The Parker family." The name slammed into me like thunder. In my last life, the Parker family had fought Oceanwide Group for 20 years. They were my fiercest rivals. Though Oceanwide eventually scraped out a victory, the battle left us scarred. The Parkers were the most formidable opponents I had ever faced. I tore open the folder. The first page listed household registration details. Name, Liam Parker. Place of origin, Los Angeles. Father, Thomas Parker. My hand froze. The cigarette burned down to my fingers. Thomas Parker, the chairman of the Parker Group, my greatest enemy from my previous life. My breathing quickened. A massive conspiracy spread out in my mind like a cold, tangled web. "Liam is Thomas Parker's illegitimate son," Michael said quietly. "He was never acknowledged, raised here in Seattle. By his mother. The Parkers only began secretly funding him once he entered college. And one more thing. We discovered Liam and Sophia didn't first meet in college. They were high school classmates. They were already together back then." Michael flipped the page to reveal a bank transfer record. "Look at this. These are Sophia's college bank statements. From her freshman year, every month, a fixed $5,000 was deposited into an anonymous account. We traced the recipient. It was Liam." The weight of the revelation hit me like a hammer. During the 3 years Sophia and I dated, she had been taking the money I gave her and secretly funneling it to her so-called white moonlight. I had been nothing more than a fool. But the worst was yet to come. "Ethan." "That's not all." Michael's voice turned grave. "We intercepted a call between Liam and his half-brother, Ryan Parker. It was recorded shortly after you and Sophia broke up." He pressed play. On the recording, a young, arrogant voice sneered, "Ryan, Liam, not bad. That trick of yours was flawless. I heard that idiot Johnson walked away with nothing, leaving the company to Sophia." "Don't get cocky," Liam's voice replied, cautious. "Ethan's calmer than I thought. Something feels off." "What's wrong with that? He's just a fool blinded by love," Ryan mocked. "Dad said once you gain full control of Oceanwide, we'll make your Parker identity public. You'll return to the family with honor. Then Oceanwide will become our stepping stone to swallow the Seattle market whole." Oceanwide swallowed. I couldn't listen anymore. My head roared, blood turning to ice in my veins. So that's it. That's how it was all along. I had always believed Sophia's coldness, her betrayal, was simply because she loved Liam deeply. and not me. I thought it was nothing more than a multiple-choice question about love, where I lost. I lost to the irreplaceable white moonlight in her heart. But in this moment, I realized I had been utterly, completely wrong. This was never a love story. It was a conspiracy, a carefully designed scheme from the very beginning, aimed at me, Ethan Johnson, and my ocean-wide group. Liam never approached Sophia out of love. He came with a mission. He was sent by the Parker family, using romance as a weapon, infiltrating my life, corroding my foundations, and plotting to devour everything I had, from inside and out. And Sophia, was she really deceived? Was she truly an innocent victim? No. A woman who could enjoy the life I gave her, yet calmly funnel my money to another man for 3 whole years. A woman who could abandon me at our wedding without hesitation, shattering my reputation in front of the world. A woman who, even after being reborn, reacted immediately by trying to seize my empire. How could such a woman possibly be naive? She and Liam were never just lovers. They were accomplices. In my previous life, those 50 long years of supposed love, the cold indifference I endured, the pain I carried alone, it was all just a mask. A performance to cover up an earth-shattering conspiracy. She never loved me. She was destroying me. Her final words before death, "In the next life, please let us be together," were not a confession of regret. They were a declaration of war. She was telling me that even if time rewound, she would still choose Liam, still choose to finish the work they left undone. To completely destroy me, Ethan Johnson. My fist slammed onto the mahogany desk. Papers and a porcelain cup leapt into the air before shattering across the floor. Michael startled. "Ethan, I lifted my head. My eyes were bloodshot, but my expression unnaturally calm. Terrifyingly calm. Like the silence before a storm. 50 years of deception. 50 years of manipulation. I, Ethan Johnson, had lived a lifetime only to discover I was nothing more than a joke. My love, my devotion, my suffering, nothing but a pawn on someone else's chessboard. Sophia, Liam, the Parker family. Good. Very good. If this is the game you want, then I will play, and I will turn the board upside down. In my last life, I merely defeated you. In this one, I will drag you into hell, and make sure you never crawl out. For 3 days, I locked myself in my office. When I finally emerged, Michael could hardly recognize me. I was gaunt, hollow-eyed, but sharp, radiating an icy determination he had never seen before. "Ethan, what are you—" "Michael," I cut him off, my voice low but steady. "Gather everyone useful. I need you to do a few things for me." I didn't waste a single word. First, use Rising Sun Capital's reputation and influence to leverage every bank and financial channel possible. I want the maximum cash raised in the shortest time. Second, assemble a professional financial team. Begin sniping the Parker Group's outstanding shares in the secondary market, quietly, relentlessly. No matter the cost, I will become one of their largest hidden shareholders. Third, dig up everything on the Parkers. Tax evasion, collusion, shady deals, every crime they've ever buried. I want the evidence that can destroy them completely. Michael sucked in a sharp breath. He had expected revenge, but not this. Not a war of annihilation. "Ethan, this isn't business anymore. This is a fight to the death. We'll be dancing on the edge of a blade." "Then so be it," I said coldly. "Whether we build an empire on a cliff or crash into the abyss with them depends on this one strike. I've been given another life. If all I do is make money, it would be an insult to the 50 years of humiliation I endured." Michael studied me for a long moment, then nodded firmly. "All right, Ethan, I'm with you." And so, over the next 6 months, all of Seattle watched as Rising Sun Capital rose like a rocket. The high-tech zone project exploded in success, giving me the capital I needed. Then I began acquiring companies at breakneck speed. Internet, biotech, new energy. Every industry I remembered would dominate the next 2 decades. My fortune swelled like a snowball rolling downhill, growing faster than anyone could imagine. Within a single year, Rising Sun Capital's scale had already surpassed the peak of Oceanwide Group in my previous life, and I had done it quietly. To the outside world, I was still nothing more than a lucky man who struck gold in real estate. No one, not even the Parkers, realized that a starving wolf in Seattle had fixed its gaze on them. The Parker family, complacent in their century-old arrogance, had no idea. Meanwhile, Sophia had fallen completely. Blacklisted as dishonest, she couldn't find decent work. To survive, she washed dishes in restaurants, worked cash registers in supermarkets, even hawked goods under the overpass. The beauty she once flaunted with pride quickly withered under the crushing weight of poverty. Her father, Robert Taylor, unable to endure the fall from grace, grew ill and never recovered. He passed away not long after. Her mother, Margaret, drowned in tears daily, muttering endlessly that her daughter was a jinx who had ruined the family. Once, Michael spotted Sophia on the street. She was fighting with people over an overturned apple cart, her hair wild, her clothes filthy, her body trembling like a madwoman. The woman who once stood before me in a wedding gown, radiant as a painting, was reduced to nothing more than a pitiful ghost. When Michael told me this, I felt nothing. No pity for her downfall, no anger at her lack of resistance, only indifference. Everything that happened to her was her own choice. What I truly cared about was her missing accomplice. Liam. Michael's men finally tracked him down in a small town in the south. He wasn't living the carefree life I had imagined, running off with stolen money. No. He was far worse off than Sophia. His leg had been shattered in an underground casino. Now he survived by serving tea and fetching drinks. The ones who broke him were sent by the Parker family. Sophia and Liam's bankruptcy hadn't just ruined their own scheme to take over Oceanwide. It also exposed shady accounts, bringing serious trouble to the Parkers. Enraged, Thomas Parker turned on his illegitimate son. He cut off his funding and sent men to teach him a lesson he would never forget. Now Liam is nothing but a hollow ruin, abandoned by his family, stripped of everything. When I heard the news, I laughed. Retribution had come quickly. But deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning. My revenge on the Parker family was far from over. The best part was yet to come. 2 years later, at the Parker Group headquarters, in Los Angeles, a shareholders' meeting was underway. The company's future hung in the balance. Thomas Parker sat in the chairman's seat, his expression so grim it seemed carved in stone. The past 2 years had been brutal. First, several traditional industries the company depended on collapsed, their market share devoured by mysterious fast-rising competitors. Then a financial scandal erupted. The stock price plummeted. A third of the company's market value evaporated. To stabilize things, Thomas Parker gambled everything on a $100 billion chip project, promising it would revive the company. He poured nearly all of the company's liquid assets into it. Today, he had gathered the shareholders to convince them to inject even more money into his sinking project. "Ladies and gentlemen," Thomas began, his voice straining for conviction. "Yes, we are facing difficulties, but please believe me. If this chip project succeeds, Parker Group will rise to new glory." His words fell flat. The shareholders whispered among themselves, unimpressed. "Mr. Parker," one major shareholder stood up, his tone blunt. "It's not that we don't believe you, but this project requires too much investment and carries far too much risk. Look at our stock price. It's already in free fall. If we keep burning money, we'll all starve with you." Another voice joined in. "Exactly. People are saying shadowy capital is deliberately shorting us. Do you think now is the time for pipe dreams? We should shut this project down immediately, shrink operations, and protect our core business. Voices of opposition rose one after another. Dot beads of sweat formed on Thomas Parker's forehead. The authority he had built over decades was collapsing in just 2 short years. And then, just as the room edged toward chaos, the door opened. A young man walked in, sharp in a tailored suit, flanked by bodyguards and lawyers. His presence silenced the room. "Who are you? Who let you in?" Ryan Parker, Thomas's son, snapped angrily. The young man ignored him. He strode straight to the table, laid a document down, and let his gaze settle on Thomas Parker. A faint smile curved his lips. "Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ethan Johnson, founder of Rising Sun Capital. As of today, I am also the largest shareholder of Parker Group." His voice was calm, but in the silence it cracked like thunder. The room froze. Thomas Parker shot to his feet, his face twisted in shock. "Ethan Johnson? From Seattle?" "That would be me." I nodded. "Mr. Parker, long time no see, or rather, we should be meeting for the first time. But your name has been echoing in my ears for 20 years. I lingered on those words. 20 years. Thomas staggered back, his pupils narrowing. His voice trembled. "It was you. You've been the one scheming behind the scenes these past 2 years. It was you." "Scheming?" I gave a soft laugh. "You overestimate me. I merely purchased a bit of stock from shareholders who were eager to sell. As for your company's troubles, those were simply market forces at work. Parker Group is old. It couldn't keep up with the times." My words landed like a slap across his face. Ryan Parker's voice broke into a scream. "How? How could you have this much money? You're nothing but a nobody from Seattle. How could you possibly rise so high in just 2 years?" I turned my gaze on him, ice cold. "Because while you were still dreaming of swallowing me whole, I had already risen to heights you could never imagine." I tapped the table, drawing everyone's attention back. "Enough talk. As the largest shareholder of Parker Group, I propose we revote on the $100 billion chip project." "I object!" Thomas roared. "Objection invalid," I replied smoothly. "According to company bylaws, any shareholder holding more than 30% of shares has veto power. I now hold 33%. The room went still. I looked around, then announced my first decision. "I propose we immediately terminate the chip project and launch a thorough investigation into all cash flows since its inception. I suspect someone has been using this project to siphon money for personal gain." My gaze sliced toward Thomas Parker and his son. Their faces went pale instantly. I was right. The so-called chip project was nothing but a front they had used to embezzle company funds. "You're slandering me!" Ryan shouted, his voice fierce but his eyes betraying panic. "Whether it's slander or not, we'll soon find out." I leaned back, fingers interlaced, calm and certain. "I also propose we remove Chairman Thomas Parker and General Manager Ryan Parker from their positions. As for the reasons, very soon, the Disciplinary Inspection Committee will provide a satisfactory answer to everyone." After saying this, I calmly took out my phone and made a call. "Mr. Wong, this is Ethan Johnson. I'm making a formal report. Thomas Parker, chairman of Los Angeles Parker Group, is suspected of multiple counts of embezzlement, illegal fundraising, and collusion with officials. Yes, the evidence is conclusive. I'll have it delivered to you immediately." When I hung up, the entire conference room froze in silence. Everyone stared at me as if I had gone mad. Thomas Parker and Ryan slumped into their chairs, their faces drained of all color. They knew it was over. That shareholders' meeting became the funeral of the Parker family dynasty. I didn't spare them another glance. I turned and walked out of the conference room. Outside, The sun blazed across the sky. I tilted my head back and exhaled slowly. The hatred that had spanned 2 lifetimes finally ended in this moment. The Parker family's fate unfolded as expected. With irrefutable evidence, Thomas and Ryan were arrested and shackled, both sentenced to life in prison. Their empire crumbled. Parker Group's stock collapsed, scandals surfaced, and eventually, my rising sun capital acquired and restructured the company at a fraction of its worth. A once mighty dynasty that had ruled the business world vanished like smoke in the wind. When it was all over, I returned to Seattle. The noise and glamour of Los Angeles no longer mattered to me. My true empire was here, in Seattle. Life settled into calm, until one day Michael told me Sophia had been coming to the building, begging to see me. She had been stopped by security. Each time. For reasons I couldn't explain, I said, "Let her come up." I saw her again in my penthouse office. Sophia looked even more haggard than before. She wasn't yet 30, but she looked 50. Her hair was streaked with gray, her eyes dull, her body wrapped in ill-fitting, cheap clothes. She stood before my desk, trembling, unable to even meet my gaze. "Speak," I said coldly. "What do you want with me?" She was silent for a long time, then whispered in a trembling voice, I saw the news. The Parker family. You brought them down." "Yes," I said flatly. Her body shook violently. She raised her head, and for the first time, I saw true fear in her, clouded eyes. "Why? Who are you really?" Her voice quivered. "You're not Ethan. The Ethan I knew loved me more than anything." I met her gaze, ice in my voice. "The Ethan who loved you died 50 years ago. In the conspiracy you helped weave. You think rebirth gave you another chance? No. It gave me the chance to see the truth, and to take my revenge." "The truth?" she whispered, confused. I smiled faintly. "Let me show you." I tossed a report onto the desk. She picked it up and turned page after page, her face shifting from bewilderment to horror, then to utter despair. Liam's true identity, his call records with Ryan, the bank transfers she herself had made to him. Her hands trembled. The documents scattered across the floor. Her strength left her body as she collapsed to her knees. No, it's not like this. It isn't," she cried, shaking her head violently. Tears streamed down her face. "He loves me. Liam loves me. He just wanted to prove himself." Even now, she clung to her delusion. "Love?" I crouched in front of her, gripping her chin so she couldn't look away. "Would a man who loved you back in high school collude with his family to use you as a pawn? Would he drain the money you swindled from me and call it fair? Would he take the last of your savings and disappear when you were already ruined?" Her tears spilled harder. "You're not stupid, Sophia," I said coldly. "You're rotten. You wanted the dream Liam promised and the comfort I provided. You wanted everything, so you bet on both sides and lied to us both. And in the end, you lost it all. The love you were most proud of is a joke. And the man you looked down on most, you could never afford to offend." I released her chin and rose to my feet, looking down at her as though she were nothing more than trash. My words shattered what little remained of her spirit. She collapsed, sobbing, her cries breaking into hysterical wails. She wept for her ruined dreams, her wasted youth, her absurd life. She wept and laughed like a madwoman. "I was wrong! I was wrong! Ethan, I'm sorry! Please forgive me!" She crawled toward me, reaching for my leg. I kicked her aside. "Too late! Your regret is worthless to me now." "You're not even worth a stranger." I pressed the intercom. "Security, take this woman out." Guards rushed in, seizing her as she screamed and clawed at the floor. Ethan, give me one more chance. I know I was wrong. I love you. I only love you in this life. Ethan! Her cries grew fainter down the corridor until they were gone. Silence reclaimed the room. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window and gazed at Seattle's endless skyline. This was my empire, my life, my dignity, won back with my own hands. As for Sophia, her love, her regret, they were nothing but the final struggles of a woman who had lost everything. In my last life, she condemned me to 50 years of hell. In this one, I simply returned that hell to her, and to everyone who had once hurt me. No debts left, no regrets. From this day forward, there would be no Sophia Taylor in my world, only the rising sun and the boundless open sky.